Let's see. My voice is still affected from Snan Yatra. We sang so high and loud. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunati Ravanacharya Yamunati Ravanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunati Ravanacharya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stottarashata Shishimad His Divine Grace Laisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya narang cheva narottamam deving saraswating vyasam tato jayam mudirayet nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityang bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Hare Krishna, thank you for coming. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam. I think today we will make a little short class. It's just a little busy these days, so if you don't mind. And I also don't know how we're going to chant this verse. Sometimes in Bhagavatam the verses are in prose and what's the other one? Prose und Lyric. Lyric and prose, I think these two. And one I know how to chant, and one I'm not even sure if if you can chant them, or so if it's okay I will just read it. Shri Shukavacha Padhang Uktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimach Charanaravinda Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katham Kinchit Antaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Padavim Na Prayena Hinvanti. Shri Shukavacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Batham, correct. Uktam, what you have said. Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead. Uttama Shlokasya, who is praised with excellent verses. Srimad Charanaravinda, of the feet which are just like the most beautiful fragrant lotus flowers. Makaranda, honey. Rase, in the nectar. Aveshita, absorbed. Chetasaha, whose hearts. Bhagavata, to the devotees. Paramahamsa, liberated persons. Daita, you know this word? Daita Madhava, Daita Madhava. Daita Kripaptaye. What means Daita? Pleasing. Katam. I think almost every word since now you know, no? It's all very common words. Katam, glorification. Kinchit, sometimes. Antaraya, by impediments. Vihatam, checked. Swam, own. Shivatamam, most exalted. Padavim, position. Na, do not. Prayena, almost always. Hinvanti, give up. Translation: by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent, transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet, and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories, may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired." It's quite a long purport and very interesting purport. Very interesting topic. Purport. Sri Shukadev Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions, that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Shukadev Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnav. This is called Vaishnav Aparad. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnav Aparad, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparad is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aparad is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. But by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuv and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect in the eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. But Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Once one has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this verse, the word Shiva Tamam is very significant. Shiva Tamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that the devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Partha naiveha namutra vinashas tasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee there is no question of being lost either in this life or in the next. Bhagavad Gita 6.40. In Bhagavad Gita 6.43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Tatra tang buddhi sanyogang labhate paurava dehikam yatate cha tato bhuya sangsidho kuru nandana. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically perseveres in devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Bilvamangal Thakur had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees there are many such instances, proving that once one has taken shelter to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kontya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 7.28, Yeshang tvanta gatam papam jananam punya karmanam tidvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam tridavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Matir na Krishna parata svatova mito bibadyate grihavritanam. A person who is attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Shivatamam Padavim. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devang Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent, transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. one who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet, and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories, may sometimes be checked by some impediments, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired. Hare Krishna. Thank you again for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we are still very excited about the beginning of the 5th canto. So literally a new chapter in our life begins. Srimad Bhagavatam is scientifically explaining to us who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is doing so by explaining mainly 10 different topics. We know in Srimad Bhagavatam there is 10 topics discussed. I don't know them by heart, but one is creation, sub-creation, manvantaras, the different manus, the planetary systems, what else? 10 topics, and the ultimate topic is actually Krishna, to explain who is Krishna. It's called Ashraya. And I just recently listened to a class by His Holiness Bhaktivigyan Goswami Maharaj, and he explains that actually the Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't have any other purpose other than explaining who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And this is done in the 10th canto primarily. Krishna, how he looks, it's a very nice description how he looks, how he behaves, what he does, where he lives, why he comes, all these things explained. But in order to understand him and understand this main topic, the other 9 topics are there, and Maharaj very nicely says to isolate the 10th topic. So by explaining different things, the main subject matter of Krishna, Ashray, is isolated or clarified or kind of highlighted more. And Bhagavatam is doing that in a very systematic way, even though we spoke last week that it sometimes looks quite wild, like going there, going here, going there, and it's not so clear what is actually the structure. But there is a structure behind it, maybe not so obvious to us. And Maharaj also in the class, he says that the Srimad Bhagavatam has to explain to us who is Krishna, and Bhagavatam also has to eliminate different misconceptions we have about God. There is so many first of all, we have to come to the point of accepting that we are spirit soul and we are a part and parcel of Krishna, of God. That's the first step, and this is done by Bhagavad Gita primarily. And then when we come to this point, the conclusion is, okay, we are spirit soul, now I have to surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. That's the conclusion in the Bhagavad Gita. And then Bhagavatam takes off from there. And Bhagavatam in the very beginning, you remember, it speaks about kaitava dharma. To prochita, I think, to reject the different, like sarva dharmam parityaja, give up all kinds of different religious beliefs. So in Bhagavatam, in the very beginning, it says, you give up all mundane religion. So that's Bhagavatam's purpose, to really bring Krishna and Bhakti Yoga, the pure devotional service into the picture by then eliminating different mundane religions, belief systems. And here it becomes obvious that something is pointed out for the benefit of us, one kind of misconception, that we, because of being in this material world, we always judge things from an external point of view. We have this tendency. So we tend to, we try to understand what means Krishna consciousness externally. Naturally, because we are, our whole, for millions of lifetimes, our consciousness flows out into this world of matter, and we are analyzing matter, and we have some value system, you know, this is good, this is not so good. And naturally, when we come into Krishna consciousness, we continue with this to some extent. In our Western history, when it comes to the religious belief, there was a big shift in religion when the Reformation took place. From the Catholic Church, which was at that time had the monopoly on religion, and then we know the history. The Protestant churches came, the Protestant movement, who reformed their belief and their tradition. And do you know what is the main, one of the main teachings from those reformers, like Calvin or Zwingli, and in Germany it was, there were different reformers, you know, in Germany, in Switzerland. In Switzerland it was Zwingli, or? And in France, Calvin. Do you know what was kind of a theme, what they were emphasizing? Of course many things, but one thing which they were emphasizing. They were saying that that you should work, you should perform your duty, and you should work, you should try to, you know, be active, and the result, or and then God will give you the benefits. He will give you the bread, He will give you the facilities, and that's how you express you worship God, but you focus on your work, and you kind of gain. So they put a lot of emphasis on this Dharma Artha. It kind of shifted from Dharma to Artha. That you have to work, you have to be economically strong. That's a very important thing. And I'm not an expert, but we know that some kind of mindset behind is that if some believe that if I worship God nicely, then the result will be that He will take care of me. Everything will be nice in my life. I will have a nice family, I will have money, I will have a job, there will be peace around. And if we don't do that, then there will be problems. And that's probably not wrong, but it's also not completely true. As we can hear in this verse, that sometimes the pure devotees, they go through phases in their life where they see many problems, many difficulties, and this is, as Prabhupada points out, sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or His devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. So he wants that there is obstacles in the life of the devotee. I always speak about the Pandavas in this regard. The Pandavas, they had a life full of problems. And from a materialistic point of view, you could say, how is it possible? They are apparently devotees of God, Krishna, but they are suffering more than anybody else. What's the logic behind? Isn't it? So that's, and Bhagavatam is trying to remove that from this misconception. And in this particular instance, we just heard about Puranjana, and the whole message in that story was Grihastha life is very troublesome, and you should just get out of it as soon as possible. And if the best is you don't even enter Grihastha life. That was a very strong theme. No, you don't enjoy in Grihastha life. You renounce the world. But now we're coming into a section where there's kind of a contradiction happening of a pure devotee who enters Grihastha life. And you can see how Bhagavatam is, in a very interesting way, from an external point of view, it contradicts, but of course we will hear over these verses and chapters how it's not contradictory, because the ultimate consideration is always internal, not external. So one can be in Grihastha ashram and be in Maya and suffering, but one can also be in Grihastha ashram and be fully Krishna conscious and actually perfectly situated. On the other hand, one can be renounced and Krishna conscious and nicely situated in spiritual life, but one can also be renounced and in Maya. The external is not the ultimate consideration. And which one is more important? The internal, of course. If we have to choose, rather we choose a life of external challenges and difficulties and full engagement, but we are Krishna conscious, rather than trying to stay away from all kinds of activities and trouble externally, but internally we are empty. We don't have any devotion for the Lord. And you know, it's interesting that, again to this point, that Bhagavatam is trying to present to us Krishna and his personality and his pastimes. But how many would understand if they open Krishna Leela and hear about Krishna and the gopis? How would it be possible to understand that the gopis are the highest devotees if they don't go through this whole school? Because they will think, these are just some women, they are all lusty, it's just some mundane activities going on. But that's why, in order to appreciate these pastimes and all of the pastimes of Krishna, Bhagavatam is going through 9 cantos in order to eliminate our misunderstandings. And Bhaktivigyan Maharaj, he says in this class that there is some, in Sanskrit, there's different names for stages of God consciousness, which are incomplete. So, he said the first stage of God consciousness is doubt. If you're doubting, like just if you're doubting, is there God or not, that's already some kind of God consciousness. You know, compared to the animal who is not even questioning, but that's the first stage, you're doubting. You're a little bit God conscious. Then he goes on, and at one point you understand, okay, there is some supreme, but it's maybe impersonal. Then you come to understand, okay, God is the Purusha. But then the next stage is, okay, there is not only Purusha, but there is also energy. And then you understand, okay, there is not only Purusha and energy, but there is this loving exchange between the Purusha and the energy. And the highest is Parakya. That's the highest understanding, that God ultimately has loving exchanges with his energy, which is happening in a way that is contradictory to Dharma. That is the highest understanding of God consciousness, and that this is actually the perfection of existence and life. So that's what we will hear, how Priyavrata, who is a pure devotee, still he entered Grihastha ashram, And we will hear why. It's already kind of hinted in this purport that the God and his devotee, Krishna and his devotee, they sometimes have the desire. Like interesting in this case, Jai and Vijay, we heard about two impediments. One is when I commit the Vaishnava aparad, and the other one is when the Lord and his devotee desires to give you some impediment. And Jai and Vijay, we could think that this is Vaishnava aparad, that they offended the Kumaras. But from this explanation, it's not actually the case. It was just the Leela performed. So we have to be careful that we don't do the same, that, you know, I just lose my temper, I become upset and I offend the devotee, and then after I say, Prabhu, you know, this is all Krishna Leela, what can we do? Yeah, you're laughing. But this is happening, I heard it many times.
I was thinking, when something bad happens and you make it nice again, you can always say, oh, it was a Leela, you know.
It's a little dangerous. Because also yesterday, one devotee, so some mistakes happened and he said, yeah, Krishna, you know, he's now Jagannath. Be careful with this, because we have to be Krishna conscious, and whatever happens in our life, yes, but maybe it's a more healthy approach that we say, see how foolish I am, I did a mistake, and maybe it was somehow arranged by Krishna, but actually I'm the cause, and it's not really that he's, you know, Krishna is there and he's just watching me all the time and making some leela with me because he doesn't have anything better to do. He's here as Super Soul, he's teaching us, guiding us, but to call it a leela would be wrong. Would be wrong. So that's an important distinction. Mostly when we offend someone, when we do mistakes, it's just our stupidity. But we have to nevertheless always think, what is Krishna telling me now? Because he has sanctioned everything that's happening. And maybe I can just finish with that. Everything that happens is sanctioned by the Lord. When the Pandavas lost their kingdom, when they had to go to exile, let's say the Pandavas were neophyte devotees, they would just complain, you know, all the time lament, why is this happening to me and to us, and all these problems. But the Pandavas were always Krishna conscious. They could see there is Krishna is behind this. He's sanctioning it. And sometimes it was even difficult for them, but they were playing the part of a conditioned living entity. Like Draupadi, she had a hard time. No? Why did it happen to her that she was disrobed in front of all of her well-wishers? And if you go through Mahabharata, again and again she comes with this point. Why did this happen? And so that is of course there. We also go through that. We ask ourselves, why am I facing this challenge? Why am I having this difficulty? Why am I suffering? And the devotee should always then ask, okay, how do I bring Krishna into the picture? What is he telling me? What does he want me to learn? Otherwise we make the mistake that we are not Krishna conscious, and when there is a problem, a difficulty, like we read in that quote the other day in the Istagoshti, Prabhupada said, the neophyte says when there is a problem externally, he will change the situation. But actually Prabhupada says the problem is inside. It's not outside, it's just inside. So the neophyte is always trying to change externally, but the more advanced devotee is always trying to change internally. And Krishna will put us in many different situations, and this is our karma. He's using our karma in order to teach us, to purify us. And so he puts us in many different difficult situations. And when we always ask ourselves, okay, what do I have to learn? What am I doing wrong? What do I have to improve? Then Krishna is, we know also, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Ki Jai, Shri Gornitai Ki Jai. If we are sincerely trying to please the Lord by our devotional service, and He sends us difficulties, He puts us into challenging situations, He promises in the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upayantite. That if we continue with our devotional service sincerely, trying to please Him, no matter what's happening, He will from within reveal to us why the situation is as it is, and how we can move forward, how we can make decisions in our life. And of course we need to take guidance from advanced devotees. We cannot just trust our own mind. We have to ask the advanced devotees, what do I have to do now in this situation? But in order to ask the devotee, we have to come to the point of fully accepting that all our problems and challenges, they are here to teach us something. And then in that mood we can also approach devotees and ask, Prabhu, Mataji, why am I struggling with this? Why is this happening to me? That understanding has to be there first. Only then we can take the guidance. Unless this is here, we will be in our own world, and we try to solve the problems externally in our own concocted way, instead of taking guidance, how can I change myself internally? So that's something which will come up in this pastime, how externally we will, as practicing devotees especially, but even pure devotees, they go through many difficult phases. But this is all simply to increase our devotion. And as a last point, this happens even to the most exalted devotees. Who are the most exalted devotees? The gopis. When the gopis were with Krishna in the rasa dance, they became proud. And Prabhupada, he explains in Krishna book that they started to think we are the most fortunate devotees of Krishna. We are with him intimately enjoying. And Prabhupada says that Krishna doesn't like if somebody thinks himself or herself more fortunate than other devotees. That see how I'm so exalted, I serve Krishna so intimately, I'm so fortunate. He prefers more when we think, actually I'm so fallen, I didn't get any mercy from Krishna, and everybody else is receiving mercy except me. That Krishna likes more. And we can see from this example with the gopis that it will continue eternally. This kind of Krishna is eternally putting us into situations, because Krishna, then we know the story, he left. And the gopis became mad. They became literally mad. They started to, many gopis, they actually said, I am Krishna, and they behaved like him, and they felt so much separation. Krishna puts them in this situation in order to again purify them. And they are the highest devotees, and that means that he's eternally putting the devotee into such situations to increase their devotion, and devotion is unlimitedly increasable. It's not that at one point now it's good. So the challenges will also become bigger. Because we get more purified, Krishna has to put a little bit more heat in order to purify. But because the devotee is more pure, he can overcome these difficulties also. Krishna always like a doctor, he gives the perfect medicine at the right time. So let's be prepared. Let's not be too attached to external situations too much, but always try to understand the Krishna consciousness means internal development, and what we might think in our mind will be my way back to Krishna. No, we all probably have some kind of, okay, now I'm 30 years old, and for the next 5 years I will do this, and then after that I will be, then I will change and I will do this, and in this way then I will have taste for the holy name, and I will do more service, and of course I will also be reading more at the time, because I'm doing it all quite, I have a plan. I have a plan how to develop my Krishna consciousness. But our understanding is we don't actually know how we're going to develop our Krishna consciousness. Of course we know we should get up in the morning, we worship the Lord, we chant our rounds, we study Srimad Bhagavatam, but mostly externally it's not so clear what Krishna wants from us. He will reveal it to us slowly. If we would reveal now, we might we might drop it. But that's nice. Means surrender means we are looking for adventure in our life. Adventure is nice. Adventure means you embracing the unknown. We go for an adventure to the safari, we try to explore new places, new situations, new people. We want to make an experiment, but in Krishna consciousness we don't even have to endeavor so much. It will come naturally, and it will be so exciting all the time. So thank you for your attention. I wish you a nice day. And if there is any comments or questions, then there is little time. Otherwise we can end. Yes, Yamuna, I always have a question.
Thank you very much for your lecture. Just when you taught the last point that actually Krishna has his plan, and we think like, we have a plan, but sometimes it doesn't work out. It's very nice. I was asking His Holiness Atma-Vilas once, like what to do if we don't know if we are doing the right thing or what. And he says like, just try to be like a river. When there is a rock, you go around, and when you're put into a jar, you take this form. And that reminds me very much of this, that you really get very soft and try to
nice.
Go with Krishna's plan.
Nice.
Always, internally let Krishna guide.
Very nice example. So that you become like the water, the river, who knows how to adjust to the situation. You don't be like a stone. That's me. That's what I do. Don't tell me anything. I know where I belong to. I'm laying in this corner, and that's where I'm nice, and everybody will appreciate me. No, let's be a river who can always flow around the impediments and even above, and sometimes the river goes underneath. Sometimes it stops. Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing this.
It's also very wonderful how you said like it's always internally. So I faced many problems, like not really externally, but that I have with me, that I really put pressure on myself or whatever. that is really material or whatever, and then if we can internally be like this, it's very nice. And then I had a question.
I have a question. What is the solution to our problems? Like let's say you face a problem, what can you do to solve that problem?
Chant Hare Krishna.
Okay, and what does it mean, chant Hare Krishna? Let go.
And give it to Krishna, so...
You turn to Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually the point. Krishna is like, he's like, you know, he's putting us in a situation and waiting and looking. Okay, now let's see what he or she does. And he's just, all he wants is that we turn to him and we say, Krishna, please, I don't know what to do, help me. And once we do that, and we all made this experience, no? We have difficulty and we don't know what to do, and we just sit down with our japa, and all of a sudden, in a mystical way, the clouds move aside, and you see the sun and everything is clear, and you feel good, and you feel happy, and yeah, you're positive and convinced, you know. So, but it's too simple. Prabhupada said it's simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. And I mean, I myself, I'm again and again wondering how long does it take till I actually understand that point? That, you know, at first I'm always trying to go take shelter in different things, astrology and indulgence, prasadam, and sleep. Sleep is always the last refuge. You just switch it off, and yeah. But if we just have faith, like the rich Basis, when something happened, the forest fire came, Krishna, please save us. It's very logical if you think about it. If there's a forest fire, you not just turn to somebody and say, please help me, save me. You're going to run or something. You just do something. But in the spiritual world, it's not about material logic. The spiritual logic is different. The spiritual logic means Krishna is the solution and answer to everything, and you just, whatever happens, you turn to him. So we have to change our thought pattern.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was also meditating a lot on this, and I came to one simple thing which remembers me to always just remember that we are not.
Please.
We're not the controller. So if we always remember that we're not in control, then nothing can happen to us because we're not in control anyway. In a way, if that makes sense. So. Yeah, when we remember we're not in control, then we automatically remember who's in control, it's Krishna. And yeah, of course, sometimes you should move, you should do something. Maybe if it's burning, we don't sit around.
Good, thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, we should do our part.
But still then we remember, okay, but we're not really in control. We can move the lever, but we cannot control what's happening when we move the lever.
Yeah, thank you. That's peace formula verse in Bhagavad Gita. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatvamam shantim richati. That reminds me of the peace formula verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which says that Krishna is he's the controller, and he's the supreme friend, he's the controller, and he's the enjoyer, he's the proprietor, he's the supreme enjoyer. So in this way, when we know this, whatever happens, it's controlled by Krishna. Whatever we want to achieve, it's in Krishna's hand, and like this. But thank you for saying we should still be doing our part. So Vrindavan Lila is a little exalted and high, so maybe we have to do what is pragmatic also in our field. Like, for us, Krishna consciousness means if there is a fire, we actually call the fire brigade, or we take this red thing and... Jagannath, please do something. Well, actually, it will happen if you have that kind of, like Draupadi. If you do, then he will do it. But it's probably not so wise that we fake something and then in the end the whole house will burn down. So, yeah, you had a question.
Kind of so. Like you mentioned that if we really are introspective, we have to get to know where is the problem, and then we have to ask devotees. And so many times I see that I really want to solve a problem, but it's not changing anything. Like the situation comes again, and I'm again falling short in this point, and I know I have to do something about it. So I wanted to ask if you have some advice there.
We said how we can turn to Krishna and chant, and one probably danger is that usually Krishna, whenever we turn to him, we chant, he's giving us mercy in a often very transcendental way. Like he can just, if he wants, he can take it away from your heart without you even understanding how. But if you're suffering because of a problem and you don't uproot the problem, it will happen again and again and again. So you can turn to Krishna and he will, like, let's say you're a child and the child is harassing other children, you know, maybe slapping, and then they punch the child and the cries, runs to the mother, and the mother says, oh, you're so poor, and then the child again is, you know, and then again it will go back and make havoc, and again it comes back and cries. So the problem is only solved if the child changes the behavior, the pattern, the habits. Everything else is like a relief. And how to change our patterns and our character, we have to endeavor, and we have to take shelter of those who have a character which is perfect. Somebody who knows how to behave with other people, let's ask him, or let's ask her. Somebody who, if I want to play mridanga and learn, then I have to go to somebody who knows how to play mridanga. He can teach me. So all the problems we have, we can go to a devotee who already knows, who already realized this. And that's the way Krishna likes that the devotee will explain to us what we have to change. And if we just sincerely try and do what he tells us, what she tells us, then we can transform ourselves. That's one way. And that's what is actually recommended by Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, that we should ask somebody. So let's end here. We have some guests that are leaving. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anna. Please come again and don't wait another 9 years.
Yes, this time I will come already. And you, if you any time come to Delhi,
Yes.
I have message your number.
Thank you. Yeah.
Give me a call. I am very resourceful in India.
Thank you.
Anywhere. Just give me a call. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Shall we do?
должны прийти. Мне нужно очень быстро убрать.